Good evening and welcome to the City Council meeting of May 12th, 2026. The time is
7:37.
7:37. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Good evening. Ms. Ayers. Mr. Buckalow.
Present.
Mr. Goldstein.
Here.
Mr. Hostin.
Here.
Mr. Lopez.
Here.
Mr. Sawyer.
present,
Mr. Steve.
Present.
Mr. Wiggins. Ms. Young.
Here.
Ms. Edie.
Here.
Ms. Wennerstrand.
Here.
Mr. Degenshine.
Present.
Mr. Dellinger. Mr. Freyer.
Here.
Mr. Bailey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
And actually, I see Mr. Dellinger's on the Zoom.
I'm here. Sorry. Got it.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 28th, 2026. Is there a motion, please? Mr. Degenshine makes a motion. Are there any corrections, changes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, abstentions. Passes, one abstention, Mr. Bailey. Next, moving on to public participation. We have a list of some folks here, and when your name is called, please come up to the microphone. You have 3 minutes to speak. Our timekeeper will let you know when you have 30 seconds. Please state your name and address before you speak.
Andre D'Annunzio.
Good evening, City Council. Andre D'Annunzio, 5 Michael Street, Norwalk, Connecticut. Proud resident, proud city resident. Just wanted to, speak about the public works, the city sidewalks, the installation on Fellow Street. I'm in favor of that. We need more sidewalks in the city because
I'm sorry, Mr. D'Annunzio, that's not on the agenda tonight. Fellow Street, is Fellow Street on the agenda? Yeah. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I apologize. Go ahead.
I'm one to walk around the city, bike, use transportation, whatnot. And we need more sidewalks because, there's pedestrians that need to get around. So, that would be lovely if you guys can, push that forward and get that both on from Grandview to North Taylor, because the city is going forward, not backward, and more sidewalks. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Sorry about the confusion there.
Matthew Silver.
Hey, good evening, Council. My name is Matthew Silver. I live at 230 East Ave. I'm a East Norwalk resident, a history teacher, and an advocate for sustainable transportation. And I am strongly encouraging the City Council to vote yes on items B1 and B2 at their meeting tonight regarding the contract amendment for the Gregory Boulevard Roundabout and the Purple Street shared use path. As I understand it, this $246,000 is grant funded and carries no cost to Norwalk's taxpayers. And as I also understand it, the funds are restricted specifically to this redesign. If we don't authorize their use we lose the funding, I think it just makes sense to use money that we are given. I think some are against the dispersal of these funds because they first want to critique TMP's proposed design, and that doesn't make sense to me. Because the funds have been requested for the purpose of creating a design. And without a finalized design proposal, I don't know what we could critique, what kind of feedback we could give. And I don't think we can have a productive debate on a design that doesn't yet exist. So authorizing these funds will allow TMP to create a formal proposal, which can then be critiqued by us, the public, for the meeting, which has been scheduled for June 22nd. I think some argue that the current roundabout works just fine, and maybe it does, but it doesn't align with modern safety best practices. And I don't think we should wait for a preventable accident to occur if we can choose to modernize right now. And in my opinion, I think a lot of New England's charm is defined by, bustling, walkable, safe streets. And if this project will help families like mine safely walk or bike from our home to cat pasture all over our neighborhood, I think that's a good thing. And in closing, I trust the professionals at TMP to design an intersection that balances the needs of drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists. And I urge the council to move the project forward and the disbursement of necessary funds.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Silver.
I'd like to sign up.
Sure.
Right on the board. Thank you very much. I am so sorry. I literally came to from work. I don't mean to be rude.
Lou Duckworth?
Good evening. My name is Lou DeCunto, lifelong Norwalk resident. I live over in 21 Victory Court. Lifelong business member here, also served as a fireman in the city of Norwalk for 26 years. I've spent a lot of time in the city, growing up through my years here. I've never seen a serious accident in this neighborhood at the end of this street. I was stationed at Station 3 in East Norwalk. I had every ability to be in that neighborhood to watch things happen, and it was never a problem at the end of this road. Now, your other two locations that you plan on having roundabouts, I think are very well suited. But as we all know, there's a portion that the city will fund of this anyway. And we have a short budget shortfalls already. And we're going to spend more money over this that probably really doesn't need to be done. Now, if you want to increase walkability, if you want to increase bike paths, you can do that along the paths that you have already now. And hopefully without removing any more parking in the city. All the city projects seem to reduce parking for residents. This is going to reduce, it looks like it is going to reduce more parking in East Norwalk. Now, it would have been very nice to see this presentation, what actually was going to be done before we had public comment, because it would have made a difference of what people say. But we have to wait till afterwards and wait till after we speak before we get an educated idea of what's going to happen. This is my say for this, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Betty Bono?
My name is Betty Bono. My address is 35 Fifth Street in Norwalk. I've lived at that address for 42 years. I strongly encourage you to pause and not spend money on a shovel-ready plan for new roundabout and narrowed Fifth Street with half of its parking eliminated until you have heard from the public. I sent all the council members a memo with much information and citations, but with only 3 minutes, I'll summarize and talk fast. I have two basic reasons for encouraging a pause. First, there are safety and hardship issues that should be discussed before producing an expensive plan. Second, there are compelling issues of procedural fairness that warrant a pause. As to procedural fairness, first, if you have a public meeting after a design is produced, members of the public don't have real input. All you get is 3 minutes to blow off steam. Second, the residents of East Norwalk are not simply stakeholders. We are also experts with a lot of firsthand experience, decades of firsthand experience in that area. So why not listen to people before the design is produced? Second, evidentiary material should be gathered and or provided to the public before next steps are taken. In particular, I'm looking for these things. First, the completed portion of the feasibility study and concept design cited in the TMP memo of May 6th. Second, data showing the number, dates, reason for, and nature of vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle accidents that have occurred at the current roundabout and on Fifth Street. Third, the data cited in the TMP memo, which supposedly shows a high frequency of hard braking by vehicles. There's no citation to what that's referring to. Fourth, any data at all regarding the effect of removing half of the on-street parking on a residential street. And fifth, any data on alternative traffic calming methods that could be used. On the merits, I believe a design that narrows Fifth Street and eliminates half its parking as per the VHB client authorization document is unsafe and will cause hardships. Speeding on Fifth Street is a safety concern, but a cardinal rule of safety engineering ought to be don't solve one unsafe situation by creating a new unsafe situation. The safety concerns and hardships include the following and others. First, creation of an unsafe bottleneck. Two, unsafe conditions for seniors, those with small children, those with disabilities, and those, especially women, who may arrive home after darkness falls and cannot park near their homes. Third, delayed response times from emergency vehicles. Fourth, a greater risk of side swipes and head-on collisions that occur on narrower streets.
30
Fifth,
seconds remaining.
stressful competition among neighbors for parking and the need for residents' cars to circle the block looking for a space. Sixth, a reduction in property values when on-street parking is removed. Seventh, a limited ability to host your friends, your family, or guests. And last, loss of what's called a home's functional utility. In summary, procedural fairness and the need to consider the matters stated above mandates a pause before proceeding to fund a shovel-ready design. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reed Auerbach.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Reed Auerbach. I live at 2 Roland Avenue, 1 block from the property we're talking about. Whoever doesn't know, I am a retired fire captain in Norwalk Fire Department, 44 years. I've lived in that house I grew up in for 71 years, a block away. My grandkids are 4th generation in my house. This to me it's crazy. I have lived this at 71 years. It's never been an issue with accidents, traffic. I understand maybe some of the signage could be updated and everything. Maybe there's a way of cars coming down from Marvin Street instead of take a left on the beach, come around and go around the monument. But to spend this money, I just hope that the council and our East Norwalk representatives will listen to the people. I said, we're the ones that do this every day. It seems like from the plans, which would have been nice if we'd been able to see them, that 5th Street and Gregory Boulevard are going to lose a lot of parking. I live in Marvin Beach, the house I grew up in. A lot of houses there have no driveway or shared driveways. Where are all these people that if you're going to lose these spaces, where are they going to park? That's a big question. Where's everybody going to park? There's not enough parking as it is. The street I'm on, when they have the ball field, the kids at the ball field are supposed to park at Marvin School. I can't even get down my street half the time. It's just, it would be nice, like I said, spend some of the money. Senior center. I'm a senior, I'm a veteran. Wouldn't it be nice to take some of that money and put it towards a senior center? Again, I'm not against updating bike lanes, but to make Gregory Boulevard 1 lane and get rid of some of the parking on the side. As a retired captain on the fire department, you have 1 lane for a fire truck to get down, as dangerous as it can be. Maybe update some of the crosswalks. Things that can be done at a lot cheaper than, $3.5 million. But again, like I said, I have lived there for 71 years. It's a great neighborhood, and it's with the development of the mill pond, it's going to be even worse with 1 lane there. Excuse me. But like I said, I just hope that this is not falling on deaf ears. I totally agree with every of the speakers that have spoke so far. Again, there is a way to do this on a smaller scale, maybe not just tear everything up. That peanut shape, I'm not sure what that is. How many property owners Nick
30
Place,
seconds
when I
remaining.
was a kid, it was Lala's. Is Nick's Place gonna be taken away? Are some of the property owners gonna lose their houses? These are all questions that residents of East Norwalk deserve to have answers to. To me, it seems like this is almost like a done deal. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that the Common Council, the mayor, listen to our concerns and have a conversation with us. Thank you.
Diane Cece.
Good evening. Diane Cece, Olmsted Place, and representing the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association this evening. And I have a prepared statement because that's what I do. On behalf of the ENNA, I'd like to make 3 key points and specific requests regarding the ECD item to authorize the mayor to fund $246,000 for the design of the Gregory Boulevard roundabout. First, you're likely to hear from 2 distinct groups of residents tonight, and you already have in your emails. One group that is pro-pedestrian, cyclist, and driver safety and believes moving forward with a roundabout design should be done and without further delay. Their longtime efforts to achieve pedestrian safety have generally been admired. The other group is also pro-pedestrian, cyclist, and driver safety, but believes a roundabout design may not be the best option and are asking you for a short delay. And their sentiment does not make them either NIMBY or fearmongers in order to do that. Second, you will probably hear from TMP staff to remind everyone that the idea of the roundabout has been floated since at least 2021. But within the past week, you've also heard from dozens of residents from all corners of the city, but most who live right there, who either never heard of it or if they did, they forgot. They say the intersection has functioned efficiently and safely for decades. Even we at ENNA were surprised this one slipped past us this year when the grant was accepted in March. The crux of the issue tonight is whether you as our elected issues take the next step to advance the project by funding the engineering design and ignore the request to hit the pause button. Or if you err on the side of transparency and cooperation and hold up a bit, not endless delays. Simply provide the one thing residents are begging you for and that you yourselves don't have. The 2021 or any other preliminary drawing or rendering of what VHB Consulting will be considering as they begin their work and the future outreach. I don't want to sound flippant or sarcastic, but honestly, at this point, we'd consider a very well drawn out layout on a cocktail napkin. There are just too many unknowns. Is it a traditional roundabout, a modern roundabout, a peanut design roundabout?
30 seconds remaining.
VHB using the same outstanding design they engineered for their first ever peanut design in Worcester, Mass. But that was for an urban center main thoroughfare with over 30,000 cars per day. Third, if the funding is approved, there's no turning back. The public engagement on June 22nd will not be to seek input of the public, but rather will be a PR effort to promote the roundabout as the only and best alternative and will move us actually towards the $3.5 million project. You have nothing to lose by holding up a bit, and as a newly seated council and administration, you have so much to gain by building trust and goodwill with our residents and taxpayers. Please, we urge you to table this at least until your June 23rd meeting or sooner. And in the meantime, to require TMP to provide the public with the complete background documents, including any drawing, and accept ENNA's offer to host them at our June 15th meeting to actually engage with the public. And we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Lisa Roger.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Roger. I live at 11 Hayes Avenue in East Norwalk and have lived in East Norwalk for over 40 years. I'm extremely disappointed that the entire city council, including East Norwalk's own District C council member, Ann Winterstein, unanimously voted on May 6th to move forward with a $246,000 consultant contract to design a roundabout for Gregory and Fifth. This was done in spite of dozens of Norwalk residents to simply request to hit the pause button for a month until the plan had been presented to residents for additional feedback. The May 6 memo from TMP Senior Traffic Engineer Benjamin Young states, and I quote, "The city of Norwalk initiated a task order with engineering consultant VHB in November 2022 for an initial feasibility study and engineering services for the roundabout project. As of now, the feasibility study and concept design have been completed, and the design team is prepared to advance the preliminary engineering and public engagement. So why can't the public see this design in advance? To me, it is completely irresponsible to authorize another $250,000 more with currently nothing to show for it. While I have not been following this project from the beginning, I only became aware of it through the notice from East Norwalk Neighborhood Association. I have questions. How was the engineering consultant VHB selected? Were there other engineering consultants who were invited to participate in the bid? Was there a review and an opportunity to shave some dollars from this money? How is it possible that a feasibility and concept design has been completed with not even a preliminary rendering of the rotary? To me, the November 22nd, 2022 date seems like a long time to go without sharing and involving Norwalk residents, especially with all the other construction and development projects currently underway. In summary, I don't understand and see no compelling reason to advance $246,000 for additional redesign or scope expansion before we can even fully understand and see what is being proposed to date. Please do not spend more money for a project that has not been fully vetted with no input from Norwalk residents. And once again, please hit the pause button. And thank you for your time.
Joe Santo.
Good evening, everybody. Due to what everybody has said, I spent almost 15 years on the zoning commission. Sitting in the chair with the neighbors, 8 years as the chair. All the projects that were reviewed on the zoning committee all those years. Is the consultant going to make a presentation tonight?
We have staff to make a presentation tonight. The
You should
consulting
have
company has not
project-
yet been approved.
You should have the project presented to the public before you have this hearing. They don't know what's going on. Anything we ever saw on plans when you voted on projects, and many projects going back to Connecticut Avenue when we redid it, and all the projects that were approved in the years from Frank Esposito and Mayor Moshe, I was involved in. And it was always, we knew the project, we saw the project before we voted on it, and the public knew what they were gonna get. So I really think you should have the consultants here presenting to the public first and then vote on the project. Right? I think you're putting the cart before the horse, I think. That's that way it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Fox.
Hello, my name is Paul Fox and I live at 11 Hanford Place. I'm here to speak in favor of funding the consultant to perform design work on the Gregory and Fifth Street roundabout. I know a lot of people here have concerns about how the design is going to turn out and what the impacts are going to be. I appreciate these concerns, but I do think that there isn't really a purpose served by not doing the design. I think that, if we fund this design work, then we will have an opportunity in June to give our feedback on the design. And at that point, on top of everything that people have said today, which, I'm sure that everyone is listening to here, these concerns and these factors can be incorporated into what becomes the final design. But just not funding the design means that we don't get anything to even talk about. So I think there's no real purpose to be served by delaying at this point. If, June 22nd comes and we have a design and everyone decides it's unacceptable, that's a different story. But I think that today, we need to actually do the design before we get public feedback on it. I think a lot of people are giving feedback on something that isn't really fully formed and we don't really have a full understanding of, and I don't think it's productive. So in summary, I would definitely speak in favor of funding the design effort so that we can have the conversation that we need to have about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica Martone.
Hello, I'm sorry, I've never done one of these before, but the whole thing about Gregory
Oh,
Boulevard.
just state your name, please,
Oh,
for the
I'm
record.
sorry, my name is Jessica Marchone. I live at 90 Gregory Boulevard. The roundabout is my front yard. And so it's really a very personal issue when it comes to adjusting that area. People constantly talk about accidents and what have you, but for the most part, unless they're drunk and coming from the beach, everything is fine. There are some issues, of course, but there's issues everywhere. I walk, I ride my bike, I walk my dog. My sister-in-law is disabled. She needs a parking space. She parks right out front. We do have some issues, but issues are kind of, what we do with as a community. But to adjust this into some peanut nonsense is, I apologize, it makes no sense to me. If you're gonna drive a tractor, why make it zigzag a bit more? But I just I hope that the people who are deciding the decisions about, or who are making the decisions about everything, take into account the differences in traffic levels from Fifth, from the beach, from Gregory, and from the dead end, because it's all very different. And that needs to be accounted when it comes through. But again, literally first time I came from work, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just want to make sure that it's heard that the people who live right there are not in favor of a change, or at least a change that is not thoroughly discussed. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. You did just fine. So right now we're going to go to people who are signed up online, and we're going to put the sign up sheet. If anybody else would like to speak, if you've come in late or if you've decided you'd like to speak, please go ahead and sign up while we go online, and I'll turn that over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 6 people online right now with their hand raised. First up is Diane L.
Good evening, Mayor Smith, City Council President Josh Goldstein, and Common Council and friends. For the record, my name is Diane Lauricella, and I am a new resident on Gregory Boulevard, of course, always going where the excitement is. And I decided to speak tonight because we've just been through a tough budget season. The mayor has been quoted extensively stating that, as others have. You all worked hard at it. So my comments are made on 2 items on the agenda. The first is item D2, related to wind waste and yard waste materials. I ask, as I did at the committee level meeting, that I want to make sure the caveat is, and the question is, that you, first of all, take it off the approved, pre-approved list and ask what are the staff and what is the city doing to reduce the amount and volume of yard waste materials, because it is a huge, leaves alone are over $400,000 a year, and we get nothing back for it, no compost. There are many ways to reduce yard waste that we are not doing yet, and I've been talking about this for years. But I want to focus, of course, on B1A and B2, and that relates to the Gregory Boulevard roundabout. I am pro pedestrian, pro bicycle, pro safety. You all know that. To save time, I will say I agree very much strongly with Betty Bono, Diane Cece, Lisa Roger, Reed Auerbach, and others that have questioned the process of getting to tonight's amount. I'm a consultant, and I did read that a previous assessment design preliminary was $10,000, $12,000 only 3 or 4 years ago. And this is for $246,000, $250,000. Let that sink in, $250,000. Lately, we have allowed staff and consultants to increase the amounts of proposals far beyond what is considered reasonable. Has anyone asked them to do the design for less, for $100,000? Especially since there was some preliminary work done? If these questions cannot be answered in your
30
discussion
seconds remaining.
or your caucus last night, I ask that you go back to the drawing board, back to ECD or whatever committee this came from, because you're spending city money and there are many other needs. Is this needed or just wanted? I am a member of Sustainable Streets, but I do think we have to be mindful of the amount of money we spend, and have we first looked at alternatives like more crosswalks, better signage, and more stop signs, and try that first. I know we have a grant, but I think pausing it for a month will do no harm. And the staff, if they're told to pause, they will pause. So please go back to the money, especially in a tough budget season. I know a lot of you, I am a fiscal moderate as a Democrat. I think that we are starting to forget who brung you to the dance. So please reconsider and vote for a pause. Thank you.
Next up is a phone number. The last 4 digits are 7700.
Hello?
We can hear you. If you could just state your name, please, and your address.
Sure. My name is Christina, and I'm on Dorset Road. I agree and called in last week as well. And you have, in fact, heard from 2 firemen who have told you there is no huge issue over there. So now that you're proving that we just have a grant, whether or not that it's local taxpayer money or not, this is just about money and lobbyists. You showed that with your vote last week, and I hope that you change your vote this week to show that you're actually listening to the taxpayers. It doesn't matter if this is a grant or it comes from our taxpayer money. The end result, the $3 million that you want, is going to come from us. And even if they say, oh, it's going to come from state taxes, do you think everybody forgets that local, state, and federal taxes all come from us? And it doesn't bode well that we just saw the mill rate increase today, and we all know the taxes have been going up. I don't want to see the faces like, oh, we look like we're looking, or we think that we're, trying to mull this over. And then again, you guys all vote yes. That shows you're not listening to the people and you're just answering to the lobbyists. Nobody knows why, but you are. And that's not who you work for. You work for us. So, as you heard, there is no traffic issue. There's no safety issue. You guys need to put a pause. If you need to put more signs, like as everybody said, fine. You need to do it, just paint the crosswalk. I'm sure we'll just go paint it for you if you guys want to. But there doesn't need to be this whole thing for concrete. And like they said, if you think you're going to make Gregory Boulevard a one-way and you're eliminating all of this parking, that's insane. Absolutely insane. And you will be causing more accidents. And then when we see that, then what's going to happen? Then people are going to sue you guys for doing a poor job? Like, that doesn't make sense. You can't make it a one-way. We have emergency vehicles that need to get around there. There is no issue. Use the money for something else. We're not going to foot the bill for this. It's beyond words. Everybody is telling you to pause.
30 seconds remaining.
So again, you need to show it with your votes. If you don't vote no, we'll know who you work for. In addition, no to the Streetlight Data Inc. Whoever is hearing this and wants to talk after me, I would say tell them to do that. They're surveilling with the city traffic, but it also includes just monitoring all bikers, walkers, so they know where everybody is walking all the time. So no to that as well. We don't need to be surveilled because of just where we can tell you where the traffic is. You don't need to have cameras to tell
3
us where the
minutes.
traffic is. Thank you.
Your time is up, ma'am. Thank you.
Next up is Dan D.
Yes, hi, good evening, City Council. My name is Dan Darbandy of 20 Ambler Drive in lovely, well, what would you call it, City Hall neighborhood adjacent to East Norwalk. I appreciate being given the chance to speak tonight. I'll try and keep my comments brief. I am speaking in support of moving forward with the roundabout project on Gregory Boulevard. I also wanted to echo the gentleman earlier who spoke about sidewalks on, I believe it was Philo Street. Love to see that pursued. I just want to make a point that roundabouts and sidewalks are proven to increase pedestrian and cyclist safety. I've heard a lot of talk so far, frankly, about there not being accidents in that area. And while that's, a valid observation, to paraphrase an old chestnut from finance, past results are not predictors of future success. And I believe that if an arrangement can be improved, it should be. I should note that in my own particular neck of the woods here in Norwalk, there was a drunk driver on George Avenue who took out a light pole, which knocked out electricity for a whole day in my neighborhood. I just want to say, imagine that kind of impact on Gregory Boulevard. Any improvement that can be made should be. Quick note about parking. If this is indeed going to eliminate parking, let's be frank, gas is about $5 a gallon. Do we really need to continue to push people to drive? And does anybody here, whether you're for or against it, just ask yourself, do you actually enjoy seeing more cars parked on our roads? It's getting a little annoying, I think, about the amount of cars we have here in our city. I'll say for myself, I own a car. I work on my own car. I hate it. I actually had car trouble today I have to go deal with after this. I want more options for pedestrian and cyclist safety. I think we would all be benefiting from that, not having to be bothered by the burden of an albatross of a motor vehicle. A couple more things. Delaying this will likely lead to the loss of this and similar projects. I'm not sure what the terms of the grant are, but as someone who works in grants management, I'm not sure if pausing this will affect the grant funding at all. So we want to make sure that we're, being mindful of that. And I just want to close by noting that the song Roundabout by the band Yes, some of you may or may not be familiar. They play it on 95.9 The Fox a lot, if that's even what the station's called anymore, was inspired by a roundabout. You can look it up on the song's Wikipedia page. I just want to say, if a simple traffic design could inspire a beloved classic rock hit, just imagine what it will inspire the creative community of Norwalk to do. I cede my time, and I thank you very much for letting me talk.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up is an email. It's garcia.ra@gmail.com.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Luis Garcia, and I'm at 15 Bond Street. Pretty much everything that I wanted to say today has been said. I'm definitely against the project. I'm a longtime resident of Norwalk, over 50 years, and I have written a couple of articles to different newspapers about this because I'm definitely against it for many reasons that have already been said tonight. I'm also very concerned about the cost of this, the fee to do this roundabout of $246,000. I'm an architect with 35 years experience, and I have dealt with traffic and consultants, and I think it's outrageous that someone is willing to charge this amount of money without even knowing what is involved in their work. I mean, I kind of ran a quick number. If you take $246,000 and you divide it by $300 an hour, which I think is excessive to begin with, you end up with, I don't know, something like 860 hours to design a circle. It doesn't sound right to me. It just sounds like someone somewhere is making money that should be, used for other means and other purposes. I also think the cost of construction of $3.5 million for something that is just a quick circle, a roundabout, whatever you want to call it, is also outrageous. I mean, if you take that and you take about $3.5 million, let's say this thing is 1,000 square feet, you're talking $3,500 a square foot to design a circle. I think everyone in this board is very intelligent, and I think you got to come to your senses and think about what is it that we're doing with this fee. I mean, besides the fact that the roundabout is not needed for all the purpose that people just said, but who is paying attention to the monies? Let's come to our senses here. And being this is a public project, I'm familiar with public work. Isn't supposed to be a series of at least 3 different fees involved here for review and approval? How did this company come about, first being selected, and second of all, charging this amount of money? Isn't there other companies that were also interviewed and asked for about their fees? It seems to me like just how
30 seconds remaining.
I think to conclude, I think we need to, like everyone is saying, pause this thing. I don't even pausing this is required. I think it should be completely eradicated from the agenda and move on to something else that is going to benefit the city of Norwalk and save us money. I'm a taxpayer person, and whoever said that we're not paying for it, we are paying for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Ben H.
Hi, y'all can hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Sorry if there's a little bit of background noise.
And
My
please
name
just
is,
state your name and address for the record.
sure thing. My name is Ben Handpeter. I live at 14 Haviland Street. I'd like to speak on the matter of the roundabout funding tonight. And I really think that the question in front of you is twofold. First, is a roundabout at the Gregory intersection necessary? And second, should the design of the project be delayed? And to that are yes and no. First, I want to address why I think it's needed. This intersection lies right on the route of the NRVT, and today it is not a safe or a standard intersection. As I know you're all aware, the NRVT is a walking and cycling route that's meant to be safe and accessible to people of all ages and abilities. And the current intersection does not meet that standard because of its current design today. I don't really feel safe riding through it, and I'm a confident rider. I ride all the time. If you're a new rider or if you're riding with children or elderly people, this is a place that you would want to avoid. That's the rational reaction to this design. So I think it's clearly needed. It's needed to realize the vision of the NRVT as a proper, safe trail for all ages and abilities. Now let's talk about why this project should or should not be delayed, which some people are requesting. I think it's important to emphasize that delaying a project like this, especially construction projects, is not benign. Every month of delay on a project like this adds to the total cost of the project. So people saying, oh, it's just a 4-week delay, it's harmless. It's not harmless. That's extra taxpayer dollars that we will pay for in the end, because the month of the delay in the design now is at least a month of delay in the start of construction, and possibly more when you start to factor in all of the project dependencies that are common in these sorts of things. And when you're talking about a 7-figure project like this, even a month of delay at the inflation rate that we currently have, which is high, is many thousands of dollars per month. So the idea that a delay is harmless is simply not true. And that, combined with the clear need for this project, means that it should be moved forward without delay. And I encourage you to vote to allocate the funding tonight. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give input. Thank you.
Next up is Rich B.
Good evening. Rich Bonifant, 17 Park Hill Avenue. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. On that roundabout thing, I would urge you to vote against it. I grew up on 5th Street and I go to the beach a lot, so I'm very familiar with the intersection. Very few people want this, and it seems like an awful lot of money to be spending on a computer-generated set of aerials, and that you could just, I'm sure there's pre-programmed things in the first place. So this is a very expensive project. And I noticed on social media things that anybody against this thing is called a NIMBY, as if that's a bad thing. I mean, if you want peace and quiet in your backyard and a parking spot for your guests in front of your house, or be able to get across town without traffic congestion, I'll take that label. I'll take that label proudly. Thank you very much. But I urge you to vote against this because very few people want it. It's way expensive. There's no need for it. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Chelsea W.
Hi there. My name is Chelsea Walsh. I live at 118 Gregory Boulevard, which is directly across from the Ludlow Playground. I also formerly lived on 3rd Street, so I've been in the area for a few years, or more than a few years. Others have said it much more eloquently than I will be able to, but I would love to see this design that will maximize safety, and I don't want to see any delay in the project. As Ben kind of mentioned, it just delays for it a long time to slow down this process. I think that we can find a compromise in keeping what's important to the residents that have said that they are not for this project and those that are interested in increasing safety. Just to name a few little things that I specifically see, there's some parking spots right on Gregory Boulevard, right next to the roundabout, that interfere with visibility of oncoming traffic when exiting 5th Street. And in general, like cars parked on the street add to a visibility issue for both potential kids, dogs, balls that roll into the street and for people driving or people leaving their driveway. I understand it's a need, but this is where, again, maybe there's a compromise that can be made and kind of please everyone there. I agree that there's a lot of speeding on 5th. There's a lot of speeding everywhere now that there are so many delivery trucks. And so things such as raised crosswalks or raised speed bumps, I could imagine being really helpful in this area, especially since there are so many people that walk around this place. Like in Connecticut, there are not that many walkable areas. This is an extremely walkable area, but there are definitely scary things for a mother like me that has a toddler to be in this specific park roundabout school district. It's just really challenging to feel safe with kind of how things are designed right now. The roundabout is funky. It's unsafe, and like Ben had mentioned, it's not safe for all ages and abilities. So I don't see why there's an issue in seeing what the design could be and moving forward with it. And yeah, I think there's just opportunity for safety to be increased for the Ludlow Park, this Marvin School, going down to the beach, all the areas that are just directly around this that everyone is flooding to. I literally live on the corner of this park and I see so much foot traffic and driving.
30 seconds remaining.
So I just don't see why we would ever say no to more safety and making this a more safe and walkable and bikeable place for us all. And I don't have anything against anyone that has like spoken against this. I just think that safety should come first.
Thank you.
Up next is Charles D.
Hello, my name is Charles D. Bisegli. I live on Osborne Avenue. I would first like to point out that I've been a resident for 20 years and I do not own a car. I walk and bicycle around East Norwalk, and I have never had an issue with this roundabout at Gregory Boulevard and 5th Street. I could see people's concerns as the neighborhood grows, and I do want to echo the concerns of the neighborhood in general about pausing this. I feel that this project, if it's to move forward, should further engage the community. It's been in the works since 2001, but there's a saying that goes out of sight, out of mind. And most people have forgotten about it, much like Complete Streets. It's been around for a while, but we have to keep everyone engaged. So by pausing this and really presenting something that doesn't cost this amount of money to the community and hear their feedback before proceeding with a consultant, I think is very important. And I really do feel with proper signage, new lighting, new crosswalks, this could all make this area much safer for the trail and pedestrians and residents. And it will not cost $3 million to do this. And the remainder of the money could go to a much better cause. So I'm encouraging everyone to hit the pause button and rethink this and further engage the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Joe. Joe, you there?
Joe, if you could unmute.
Sorry about that. I went through half of my. Joe Pecoraro. I've been a Norwalk resident for about 15 years. I lived in 06853 and now I'm in 06855. I have seen problems at that section, but I don't think that's what I'm hearing from most of the other residents, and nor what I think is at issue. What's at issue is the fiscal responsibility we have to take. So in this, the survey is A2 Survey Foundation. So what that means is there's a bunch of things that are out of the scope of the contract, which will have to be paid for in order to get this to move forward. The number of plots that'll have to be surveyed is somewhere between 8 and 15. Of those, it's going to cost about $3,000 to $8,000 per parcel. That's just an additional $60,000 to $75,000. More importantly, you're going to have to do something where there's likely going to need to be some parcels that are bought. You're going to be taking people's land, and there's going to have to be compensation for that. All those processes take a long time in Connecticut, and they're costly. So being that one of the things that has to be done are these parcels, and it's explicitly excluded from the contract, that tells me that whoever mentioned it's going to cost a lot of money because inflation, yada, yada, yada. In the contract itself, there are delays that will have to occur. And there will be things that people have to decide, are we going to be able to pay the people a proper amount of money for the easement that we're going to get? And there's no guarantee that those things happen. That can take 6 to 18 months. There's no question a pause is necessary, and that as fiduciaries, you should not allow the A2 Foundation survey to be excluded. It should be something that either you do up front or it's in, look, their scope is their scope. They're saying that's what it costs. Get them to go ahead and include that the A2A and make sure the people that live on Fifth and the areas that you're going to be taking property from, you let them know what that property is going to be. This is not just fixing a road. This is altering the way people enjoy their land, and it's going to be costly. That's all I got.
So right now I don't see anybody else online, but we do have a couple more people who have signed up.
Yes, Nanette Halpin. Hi, everybody. My name is Nanette Halpin, and I'm here tonight because for approximately 30 years, I have come up and down that road multiple times a day and night, at every hour of the day and night. I have commercial properties on East Avenue. I am on Calf Pasture Road. And so I'm going back and forth between the two of them constantly, as is my husband and other family members. Never once in over 30 years have I seen one accident at that roundabout or any of the roads surrounding that roundabout. Never have I averted one, been a part of one, or seen any other problem occur there as a result of the traffic. It's a charming area. It's not a dangerous area. I should also back up and say, I also, when I babysit my niece's dog for weeks at a time, I walk all those roads for miles, all around them. Never have I had a problem crossing over. I mean, I'm hearing some of the people calling here and talking about dangers. I've never felt any danger. It's actually a safe area because that's small, because it's sort of an intimate area. We all do pretty much take our time there, and there's just never been any problems. I mean, I was really shocked to see that this is even on the books for conversation. I don't understand it. I don't understand what's even brought it to the forefront of your minds, because it makes no sense to me as a resident there. Furthermore, I've also looked at the drawing, some drawing that was posted online, and was absolutely shocked to see that you would even contemplate getting involved in eminent domain with properties that are down there. In particular, one of a friend of mine that is a restaurant there that just reopened, that's showing that you are actually removing a portion of the back of his parking lot and parking area. And there are other properties there that are showing, I don't know who did this diagram, but that some of these properties are going to, as the last caller just mentioned, become involved in eminent domain situations. And for what reason? Who wants this? Has anyone in that entire area been asked to, like, weigh in other than this evening? I just
30 seconds remaining.
I'm sorry. I'm Oh, sorry. you have 30 seconds.
So I really agree with the last caller. I really think that this deserves more time, more conversation, and that we should, once you put your plans together, which I don't even think are necessary, but if that's where you're going, then I think that there should be a meeting called that allows even more people than this, if they want to be here, and not only to get up and speak, but to ask you direct questions. Because I'd really like some answers to my questions, the primary one being, why are you even doing this? What is the purpose of this? So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Tanner Thompson.
Hello, Council and Mayor. Thanks for having us tonight. I live at 16 Hillside Place, number K5. And I am asking for this. I am asking for the roundabout. I'm commenting on the roundabout agenda item. Those who are quick with a mental map will notice that 16 Hillside Place is not in East Norwalk, but my wife and I first moved to Norwalk in 2018, and we lived on Second Street for a year. And I biked down to the beach regularly and back. It actually was one of the things that when I first moved to Norwalk, and I hadn't yet found a community, and I was still pretty isolated and didn't have a friend group. I spent a lot of nights biking to the beach and back, working through those feelings of isolation. So I've been through that roundabout many times. More recently, as I mentioned in the committee meeting, I run occasionally with the group Los Runners, which is a community running group that meets up in East Norwalk and runs to the beach and back, and they always run through that intersection, crossing without a crosswalk, because, as I would like to point out, right now in that intersection, if you consider the entire intersection with all the, I think, 5 different legs of the intersection, only 2 of those legs have crosswalks across them, and the rest of the crosswalks don't exist. So if you live on Pine Hill, if you live on Marvin, there is no way to cross with a crosswalk to get to Ludlow Park unless you walk all the way down to Marvin Elementary or walk all the way over to Gregory and up to 4th Street. Those are the nearest painted crosswalks that will allow you to cross to Ludlow Park. So from the perspective of a pedestrian, from the perspective of a cyclist, we are asking for this because the existing situation is incomplete. I've mentioned the crosswalks. The bicycle situation is even more paltry. There is a single bike lane coming from going across kind of the south side of the intersection, going down southbound onto Beach Road. That is like a 1/5 of the roundabout and doesn't obviously make anywhere near all of the connections. My goal for this intersection, for Gregory Boulevard, for Beach Road, and for all of Norwalk is that we have a pedestrian and bicycling network that serves all ages and abilities. So for those of you, those in the audience saying that we don't, that there's no issue with the intersection right now, I would ask you, would you let your 8-year-old bike to Marvin Elementary through that intersection? Because I wouldn't, and I'm a very risk positive person, as a lot of you know, because I bike everywhere. Anyway, a couple of other points I wanted to make. The June meeting
30
will
seconds remaining.
not have a design ready. The whole point of the June meeting is to get public input, which is what people seem to be asking for. Getting staff members to hold an event is not free. And so part of the money that we are allocating tonight would be to conduct the public input that people are saying they want. Also, people are saying that they want an idea of what this will look like. That also costs money to generate high quality renderings. You can generate a really crappy one through AI. I know this. I work for an AI company. I've seen a lot of AI slop out there. In order to do something well, you have to do more than just AI. So I have a lot of points here. I'll skip some of them. Anyway, I'll end on this note. To paraphrase a common legal maxim, improvements delayed are improvements denied. So I would urge you not to deny this and by delaying it and to move it through. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's everyone? Okay. Anyone else here who would like to speak, or anyone else online, please raise your hand. Yes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Charles Tomanek, 23 Fifth Street. I came to Norwalk about 30 years ago. I've been walking the streets for 30 years. I've been walking dogs for 30 years. I've been biking the streets for 30 years. Never have I ever seen an accident in that area. I walk by Nick's restaurant. I feel very comfortable walking the dog. I have questions. The more I sit and listen here, the more suspicious I become. My first question, what triggered this concept of developing the roundabout? What is the origin? What factors cause this to come to be? Next, the money that is being spent is outrageous. $3-point-something million and $250,000 for architect. Disgusting. You heard some people talk about the dollars per square foot, dollars per hour. I think it's just incredible that we are entertaining this project. I ask you to please pause. If you do not pause, my next question is why? What factors would cause you not to pause? That's all I have to say. Thank you. Would you like me to sign in?
I've got you, sir.
Charles Tomanek, Tomanek. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last call. Can we have someone online? Ms. Henderson?
Lisa H.
I guess I need to unmute. Lisa Henderson, 21 Apple Tree Lane, Norwalk. I did send an email. I just want to follow up, verbally that I would like to see a pause on this. I did not mention in my email that I do own a house, a two-family house at 75 Gregory Boulevard. And I agree with many that taking away parking would be disastrous. Parking is disastrous, and many of the homes have a little bit of parking. I'm lucky to have a two-car garage and a wide driveway. So we are a little bit lucky that. But also, my other question is if you could just, let the public know how many letters were received, and are the letters going to be read, or is there at least a consensus of, how many letters were emails? I'm assuming emails or letters were for versus against the proposed roundabout. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson. And that appears to be it. So I will close public participation, and just to point out that any letters that have been sent in will become part of the public record. So, okay. Next item on the agenda is resignations and appointments. First, we have the resignation of Daniel Loftus-George from the Arts and Cultural Commission. Sorry to see him leave, but we do need to accept his resignation. So all in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Moving on next to the appointment of Andre D'Annunzio to the Commission on Gender Equity. Is there someone who would like to move that? Thank you, Mr. C.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to nominate Andre D'Annunzio to the Commission of Gender Equity and speak to it. I've known Andre for quite some time, and like a lot of us have, and Andre is just a face that you see around Norwalk all the time. He's always helpful, compassionate, and he really cares about the city of Norwalk. He's somebody who volunteers with Best Buddies, also the Norwalk Partnership, and I think that those two roles just show the compassion that he's going to have. The Commission of Gender Equity was recently changed. Formerly, it was the Commission of for Status of Women. I'm sorry, but they opened it up to focus more on gender equality, equality. And I think that Andre is going to really be an asset here. He's somebody who's a best buddy, and he's a partner to the city of Norwalk, and I'm happy to see him join this commission.
Thank you, Mr. C. Other comments? Mr. Goldstein?
All I want to say is that Andre is the consummate volunteer. Any big event that happens in this city, Andre is usually involved and has usually been there for 6 hours longer than you have. And I just, that level of service and volunteerism and commitment to this city is something that we cherish. And so we're so thankful to you, Andre, and and are obviously excited that you want to, volunteer in this capacity. But you're always there for us, and I really appreciate that. So you're the man.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Ms. Young?
How could I not, Andre? I think I gave you your first job. You sure? So, and all I really want to say is that it's always a good thing to see young people stepping up to volunteer, because this is not an easy thing to do, but your willingness to serve is much appreciated, and setting an example for other young people to follow. So thank you very much, and congratulations in advance.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, I will just throw my comments in the ring. Andre, thank you for your willingness to serve. And as has already been mentioned, I mean, you always come with kindness and compassion and a willingness to go above and beyond. So it's really a pleasure to be at this point where I am going to call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Congratulations, Andre. And I'm going to thank Mr. Seed for the recommendation to go back to something that we had done before the pandemic, which is to swear you in here in council chambers. And so this is the first since the pandemic and just the first of many. So this is what we'll do moving forward. So come on down and we will swear you in right now. Yes. Okay. Okay, so you're just gonna raise your hand and I'm gonna say you and I'll say your name and then I'll read it. So yes. Okay, you.
I, Andre Joseph Nuncio,
Having been appointed as a member of the Commission on Gender Equity of the City of Norwalk, do solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of said office according to your best skill and judgment, so help you God, and upon the pains of and penalties of perjury.
I do.
Congratulations. Here. Here. I won't copy this for you. I'll just ask us first. Here, yeah, right there. Brand new. And here. I'll sign this one. For you. All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Way to go.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations.
Congrats. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is mayor's remarks. I hope everyone, first of all, had a nice Mother's Day and celebrated with someone special. May is Affordable Housing Month, and as we recognize Affordable Housing Month, I would like to reflect on what housing truly means to our community. Housing is more than a building or an address. It's stability, dignity, opportunity, and the foundation from which families build their lives. In a city like Norwalk, affordability is not just a challenge for one group of people. It affects young families trying to stay close to where they grew up, seniors hoping to age in place, teachers, nurses, first responders, and the workers who help keep our city running every day. A strong city depends on being a welcoming and attainable place for people at every stage of life. That means continuing to have thoughtful conversations about housing, investing in solutions, and working together to ensure Norwalk remains a diverse, vibrant, and inclusive community. As mayor, I remain committed to pursuing balanced, responsible solutions that increase opportunity while preserving the character and quality of life that make Norwalk such a special place to call home. This month is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, a time to honor the cultures, histories, and contributions of AA and HPI communities that have helped shape our city, our state, and our country. To all our Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander neighbors, thank you for the many ways you contribute to the life and spirit of our city. We're proud to celebrate with you this month and throughout the year. And now I will turn it over to Council President Goldstein.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And tonight, the reading of the consent calendar will be read by Council Member Darlene Young.
Thank you, Chris. We're going to move on to the consent calendar with item 7A, Public Safety and General Government. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order not to exceed $22,650 to Locality Media, Inc., doing business as First Due, to add 3 modules, scheduling, exposure, documentation, and reports to the current fire department records management software contract. Funding available from the account noted. 7B, C, Land Use and Building Management. 1A, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to execute an agreement with Titan Enterprises, Inc. for the concert hall restroom renovations project for a total not to exceed $397,700, count number noted. And 1B, authorize a contingency allowance for a total not to exceed $39,770, account number noted. C2, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Facility Compliance Fire Protection LLC to provide life safety services for various city buildings. A, fire alarm services for an initial term of 3 years for a total of $31,280, with 2 one-year options for $11,830, fiscal year 2029 to 2030, and $12,184 for fiscal year 2030 to 2031, and B, sprinkler suppression services, an initial term of 3 years for a total of $25,817, with 2 one-year options for $9,970, fiscal year 2029 to 2030, and $10,113 for fiscal year 2030 to 2031. Account numbers noted. C3, authorize to increase the owner contingency allowance for change orders to the guaranteed maximum price with Newfield Construction Group LLC for the Silver Mine School HVAC IAQ project for an additional amount not to exceed $504,308.97. Account number noted. D, Public Works. C1, A, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to execute an agreement between the city of Norwalk and B&W Paving and Landscaping LLC for project PM 2026-1 roadway paving and sidewalk installation for Philo Street from Grandview to North Taylor for sum not to exceed $2,033,555. Account number noted. C1B, authorize the Chief of Operations and Public Works to execute orders on the contract with B&W Paving and Landscaping LLC for project PM 2026-1 roadway paving and sidewalk installation for Philo Street from Grandview to North Taylor for sum not to exceed $203,355.50. Account numbers noted. C2, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to execute a 4-year agreement between the city of Norwalk and Wind Waste Innovations Holdings, Inc., City Carding LLC, for the transportation and disposal of yard waste materials, project 4507, for an initial base price of $67.50 per ton to be adjusted by market conditions for a period of 4 years with an option for 2 one-year extensions. Account numbers noted. 3A, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to execute an agreement between the city of Norwalk and A. Biddy Excavators LLC for project BLDG 2026-1 City Hall Drive per grant project 2026 base bid for a sum not to exceed $111,480. Account numbers noted. 3B, authorize the Chief of Operations and Public Works to execute orders on the contract with Avidi Excavators LLC for project BLDG 2026-1, City Hall Drive Curb Ramp Project -2026 for a sum not to exceed $22,296 contingency. Account numbers noted. That concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilmember Young. The consent calendar having been read, all in favor? That is unanimous. Back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein, and I'm just going to turn it right back to you. But before I do so, unless anyone has an objection, we'll move on to item B2 before the discussion on B1, just in the interest of respect for staff. Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is B2, authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to execute an agreement between the City of Norwalk and Streetlight Data Inc. For citywide traffic data analysis for a sum not to exceed $21,938. I'd like to move this item and just speak very briefly to it.
Yes.
And I just excuse me, and I see that Nell from TMP is here. And just very briefly, this is a organization that TMP has been working with now for probably around 4 years to purchase and access traffic related data to help us understand traffic patterns better and figure out how to make our streets better connected and safer for everybody. And using this data and doing this analysis is really important. But since I'm not a traffic engineer, and you probably don't want to hear from me about traffic engineering, I think it's would be better if I turned it over to Nell, who might be able to provide a brief synopsis on what this is and how it benefits Norwalkers.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Nell. I'm the traffic analyst with TMP. So I'm here to just discuss and request that this agenda item be approved. It will. Yes. This is for purchasing streetlight data. We use this data on a daily basis to understand better the speeding and vehicle traffic volume on our roads. It helps us normalize and prioritize our future projects. So we use it to better gauge where are crashes occurring, how does that relate to the number of vehicles on the road, and it helps us better prioritize where we may have limited controls, such as a state route or a highway entrance where we can't, as the city, take over an entire project, but rather we could focus our resources in our city roads. So we've been using this to address resident requests. It's helped us secure funding for various different grants. We use it on an everyday basis, so this is really critical to us in pursuing it. We've used them for, just like Mr. Goldstein said, about 4 years. The reason that I'm in front of the council is for purchasing guidelines. We need to get council approval for purchases over $20,000. I just wanted to clarify that this is not installing cameras. This is not tracking, surveilling residents, nothing. This is tapping into a resource and a data platform that already exists, whether or not we purchase it or not. So the data is collected through cell phone data, through connected vehicles. So it's whether or not we tap in and take advantage of the resources. Another question that's come up in the past is, why are we not renewing with vehicle classifications with truck volumes and data? So the primary reason for that was cost. So by adding a truck package to this would increase the cost by over 50%. It would more than double the cost, which from a cost effectiveness and cost benefit kind of viewpoint, it didn't really make that much sense to renew it just for the truck specifically. TMP has resources to still conduct traffic studies, to still address cut-through traffic, to still address oversized vehicle traffic on city roads. So we're able to do that still and maintain it at a much lesser cost to the city. And overall, it just helps us keep keep our roads safe and prioritize our next projects. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Michelle, yes. So thank you, Neil. I appreciate it. So as you know, I think at our meeting, I mentioned my concern or question about why we didn't include trucks, particularly, I represent District B and we have lots of trucks that come through our area and so do other communities. As we grow, there will be tractor trailer trucks or larger trucks coming through different communities. And so my concern was why were we not, or question was why were we not counting those? Because they do a lot of, I don't want to say damage, but they do a lot of wear and tear on our roads. And so that should be something too that we're looking at. And so you and I did have that conversation. And I think out of that conversation, my understanding was that we do plan to put that back in. And so I'm okay with that as long as that is something that I think we really need to really look at, because even in every area, we've got light industrial to somewhat heavy industrial businesses in our corridor, like if you go down West Avenue. And so even with trailers, with boats going down by the beach, there's an impact on our streets. And so what does that look like? And so I appreciate you coming to talk about that and giving the opportunity to just put that out there publicly.
Yeah, and just to go forward on that. So we do have truck data from 2023 and 2024. So this is all recent data that we will still have access to even once, if this were to be approved, we wouldn't have the full year of 2025. We would have some probably into 2025. The truck data is on a larger lag because it is harder to obtain, which is also why it is more expensive. So we will still have access to the 2023 data and the 2024 data. From a year to year, there hasn't been a significant difference, which is why we opted for this year, take a break, let the market kind of cool off, explore future opportunities, potentially with other companies if needed. But that was just the reasoning for it, purely from a cost standpoint.
Mr. Prayer. Yes.
Thank you for coming tonight, Neil. And we talked about this the other day too. I just think it's really important to emphasize the fact that the information that we're getting is just cars, number of cars. There's no way to identify license plates. There's no way to identify passengers in those cars, how many passengers per car, anything like that. This is just how many cars go through our streets. It's the same information that I would get if I were taking any one of the applications to do traffic directions, and they're telling me it's slowing down because there's a lot of traffic ahead of me.
Correct. So Streetlight data uses GPS data. They go through the data cleaning process. That data never gets remitted back to me, back to any of the other users. All we see in the platform is the number of vehicles on whichever segment we select, whatever analysis that we're performing. And that's all we see is that number, either the average speed or the 85th percentile speed or the volume. That's it. We see no personal identifying information. It's not installing cameras. This is collected through either cell phones or connected vehicles. And yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you for the clarification. I was also in the meeting where you went through this. I just wanted to emphasize also and clarify that the data that this is collecting is from connected vehicles and from cellular users who have already opted in to have their data collected in this way. And this is being aggregated and used by this licensee or this vendor for us to then use here.
Correct. Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Sorry, just to piggyback on that. So can you clarify who is the licensee or the vendor who's collecting this information?
So the GPS systems that send it over to Streetlight, I believe, are TomTom, Google Maps, Apple Maps, all the major brands. They have their own contracts and they have their own processes that they collect the data. Cell phone is a powerful tool. A lot of times people skip over the terms and conditions when accepting it, which, that's how the world is, I guess. But, using this data in this way allows us to make really meaningful change in our community. And we've been using it for years. It helps us better understand what residents' concerns are. If a resident comes in about speeding on their road or cut through traffic on their road, without even having to do a full-on week or however long traffic study, we're able to better address their concerns, see if it needs further investigation, see if it warrants additional infrastructure improvements, and then move forward into becoming a project if necessary.
Yeah, and I would say I appreciate that point, that, you know, we take the good with the bad, right? But I think it should be noted that when we talk about users opting into this, most of us don't do so knowingly.
Yeah. Any other questions for now? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? And that carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item B1, Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is authorize the mayor, Barbara C. Smith, to execute an amendment to the contract between the city of Norwalk and VHB for design and engineering services for the Gregory Boulevard roundabout and Fifth Street Shared Use Path project in an amount not to exceed $246,000. B, authorize the Director of Transportation, Mobility, and Parking to execute orders on the contract between the city of Norwalk and VHB for design and engineering services for the Gregory Boulevard roundabout and Fifth Street Shared Use Path project for a sum not to exceed $24,600, account number noted. I'd like to move this item and speak briefly to it. Thank you, Mayor. So this is a intersection, and just having been on the council for a few years, and I know that we've received a lot of feedback over the years about this particular intersection, and that kind of run the gamut. Everything from complaints, requests, contacts from neighbors, and you know, this is one of the most traveled intersections in Norwalk. Certainly gets more travel during the summer months, but there are issues brought up and cited in terms of basically its traffic control mechanisms, and given its location, which abuts a park not far from elementary school, and of course is right down the road from Camp Extra Beach. And I want to just cite, if you haven't taken a look, the backup materials in particular, the memo by Ben Lowe is right over there, is very thorough, and if you haven't read it, you should. There's been a lot of public comment, obviously, over the last week, both for and against, as you've heard tonight, both for and against. I first of all just want to thank everyone who engaged in this process. I think it's really important that people feel not only engaged, but also the second part of that, which is that they feel heard. And so I hope that tonight's meeting, and I want to thank Garrett Bilella and Ben from TMP to be here, to not only address what this project, or everything from the origin to this project, to what this project is, to what's being requested, to why, sort of the process in general and how this process works. And so I appreciate them being here, but I also want to commit myself to residents and making sure that they feel heard, and that I want to hear them and hear their concerns and make sure that everyone's concerns are fairly and thoroughly addressed. And I think that's important. And so for those reasons, I'm going to turn it over to Garrett Bilella and Ben Young from TMP.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. And I just wanted to go back to a couple words that you said, consideration of public comments fairly and considerately. I just want to thank everyone for the public comments. Our senior traffic engineer and our data analysts were here tonight to record all those comments and to incorporate them as part of the record for our design considerations. And I wanted to also, so I'll thank our team members as well. I also wanted to recognize the council in a previous meeting last Wednesday with the ECD committee. We heard your message. We advanced the creation of a website for this project. So there is a full website dedicated to this project. We uploaded several different materials, including an outline of the project limits. And these are all materials that we also brought to the mayor's night out, and we spoke with many residents about that, attended that evening as well. But we've included on the website a project limits map, which I'll share tonight and go over in a little bit more detail. Brought a number of boards as well that are also included on the website, everything from the crash history that we have for the area. We have some surrogate safety data, which is heartbreaking events, and it helps us see where there's potential near misses. We've included that information on the website, and we include a lot of information from previous planning efforts, whether that was outreach at other events we've done in the neighborhood, in the community, whether it was part of the transportation master plan process. We've included some links so you can see some of the previous comments that kind of led us to be here today. So there's a wealth of information on there. And I hope everyone has the opportunity to review what's on file. But I guess what I wanted to start with tonight is just to talk a little bit about the intersection itself. It presents a lot of challenges today. So, when we look at this intersection, what we see is a lot of different traffic controls in a very small area. So the Fifth Street approach today is a stop control approach. Gregory Boulevard northbound is a stop control approach today. We have Gregory Boulevard southbound. It's an uncontrolled approach, which I think leads to a lot of speeding further down the street, which I'll provide some of the additional data that we have. Also, the approach from Marvin Street to Gregory Boulevard is an uncontrolled approach. And then we have a yield condition in the center of the circle, which is really counter the design of modern roundabouts. And I think it's created a lot of confusion over the years. And we've received and continue to receive a lot of citizen service requests directly pertaining to that issue. As far as the actual crash data that we have a record, we've collected crash data. We looked at over the last 10 years from January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2024. We plotted all of those dots on the map. This is also something we brought to Mayor's Night Out, and that's on the website. But really, the results at this intersection are 33 crashes over that time period. And as far as where it ranks with other cities' intersections, Nell has done a really great analysis. She looked at all intersections in the city that have over 1,000 vehicles entering them on a daily basis, and this is in the top third or top 30% of those intersections as far as the highest crash rate. There's also been 9 crashes that reported either suspected injuries or minor injuries of those 33 crashes. And we have 4 reported cyclist crashes at this location. So to put it in perspective, that makes this the second most dangerous location for cyclists in the city based on our recorded data. And all the data that we use is obtained from records submitted from the police department to the state of Connecticut, which they put in their crash data repository. So all of this information is also available publicly online. But we started to look a little bit deeper into this. And you'll notice on this map, there's a bunch of yellow dots. So those yellow dots represent run off the road crashes. So scattered around this area, there's 13 run off the road crashes, which stood out to us from the perspective that all the adjacent roadways are 25 miles per hour. So this isn't something typically that you'd see in an area with really low speeds, but I think it speaks to while the speed limits are posted at 25 miles per hour, people are driving in excess of that in many instances on many approaches. And then just also the confusing nature of the intersection is what led us to believe that this is somewhat unique at this location. Also on this map, there was 4 reported angle collisions and 1 head-on collision. So these are typically the most dangerous collisions, and they have the greatest potential to create injury on city streets. In totality, when you look at all of these different crashes, and there's others, there's side swipes in opposing directions. And then there's rear ends, which, based on all the different traffic controls, is something to be suspected here. But when you start to look at the different crash types that you actually see at this intersection, a lot of them can be mitigated by a modern roundabout design, by taking that traffic circle and building upon it and making a uniform yield condition upon entry to this intersection. So that's what first led us to look at this traffic circle and start to consider a roundabout at this location. Ben, if you don't mind, I just want to share the heartbreaking data. So, Nell mentioned streetlight data. We worked with Streetlight. This isn't something included in our package. This is just another service they offer, but we did a pilot at this intersection knowing this project was coming up. And we have a sample of data. So this is just a sample. It's not all vehicles on the roadway. But it just shows the severity of braking that we're seeing at the intersection. And I just wanted to point out, when you're looking at Gregory Boulevard southbound, you see several different dots representing hard braking, very hard braking, severe braking. So it's anywhere between, you changing your speed from 7 miles per hour in 1 second, and I think it extends closer to 10. But this southbound approach has no control, but you see a lot of braking. So those are potential near miss situations that we've kind of captured using this surrogate traffic measure that doesn't represent crashes, but it could represent the potential for conflicts and near misses. And you'll see in other areas of the circle, I guess I just want to point out too, with the traffic circle. So if you're driving from Marvin Street and you want to continue on 5th Street, which there's no prohibitions to do that, when you enter the circle, at this point, there's no traffic control for the driver headed westbound. There's also no traffic control for the driver headed southbound. So there's potential, and there's some situations in this intersection where neither driver have direct control, and it could result in conflicts. And I think that's why we see a lot of these dots in braking. And then I guess the last thing I want to point out about this concept is we do see a lot of hard braking at the stop bars for the intersection. I think that's part of just the nature of the high speeds in the neighborhood. So I wanted to start with a little summary of the intersection and some of the data that we have on record. But I also wanted to spend a lot of time talking about the timeline and how we got here. So this goes back many, many years before I joined the city or Ben, myself, or Nell. But in 2020, the traffic authority, it was brought before the traffic authority as an information item, and only traffic control signage was changed at this intersection. So in November of 2020, based on prior years, citizen service requests, basically around near misses and confusion at this intersection, an item was brought before the traffic authority at that time, and simply signage improvements were made. Signage improvements, very little pavement marking improvements. But what was changed here is yield signs were put up on the southbound Gregory Boulevard approach on Marvin Street, and the yield control that was in the middle of the circulating intersection was removed. So it would function more like a modern roundabout. At the time, a few months followed, it was deemed by the traffic authority that just signage improvements alone without related infrastructure were insufficient. And at that time, the traffic authority reverted the control back to what you see out there is today. So I bring that up because there's been a lot of suggestions made about simply swapping out signs or changing pavement markings. But I think what we have here is a really, really wide intersection. We have a lot of pavement, and simply changing signage or adding some pavement markings was determined in February of 2021 as not being sufficient. And it resulted in more confusion. So at that time in February 2021, it was recommended by the traffic authority that a more comprehensive study be completed and a plan to be developed. This was the point at which VHB was engaged to begin their preliminary analysis of this intersection. Moving forward, May 2021, our department requested authorization from the planning committee, which was the former Economic and Community Development Committee, to contract with VHB. And this was really just to conduct field surveys at the time of existing conditions and really just start to look at the feasibility analysis for a potential roundabout. That included everything, that included survey of the intersection. We heard a lot of comments about identifying the right-of-way, right? We wanted to identify the right-of-way with survey to ensure that we could look at a design that would do this with minimal impact to the neighborhood. Again, there's a lot of pavement here that we could do it within the existing right-of-way. So that was a really important part of the project that was conducted. We started collecting survey in May of 2021. We also, at that time, conducted turning movement counts throughout the area, including heavy vehicle data, so that we could model this intersection and make sure that if we were to change the traffic control, that it would work. we've conducted over the past several years numerous counts during worst case conditions. We've done counts in the summer, we've done counts in the spring, we've done counts during the boat show to collect also the vehicle classifications that we need to design for. So a lot of that information started being collected in 2021. And also the consultant started looking at what it would take to preserve the historic monument, to really preserve the circle that's there, but just build upon it to create somewhat of an odd shaped roundabout, or I've said in past calls, a peanut roundabout, but what it would take to do that. And they also, at the same time, they started to look at the Marvin at Calf Pasture Beach intersection to see what could be done as that, because it's so closely related to this traffic circle, and is also a gateway into Beach Road and the rest of the community. So at that time, the survey and the feasibility analysis determined that we think we can largely do this within the right of way. We don't think there'll be property impacts. We think we can preserve the historic monument. And then, so that was earlier on in the project. After that, 2022 to 2025, the project lay largely dormant. And the reason for that was we were in the process of pursuing design and construction funding to make this a larger neighborhood safety improvement project. During that time, we continued to conduct public outreach for various other projects throughout the city. We were going through the transportation master planning process. We still continue to receive customer service requests about this neighborhood and some of the challenges with whether it was bicycle, pedestrian infrastructure, traffic operations in this neighborhood. We received numerous requests for traffic calming around the area. So maybe if Ben could swap out the project limits graphic. Specifically, I wanted to mention we received, as part of the transportation master planning process, numerous requests for residents of Fifth Street to look at traffic calming on their street. So Fifth Street, based on some of the volume data that we see in the area, we found that approximately 50% of the traffic that's coming from Seaview Avenue, that's coming from the west, uses First Street, and 50% uses Fifth Street. So there are a lot of vehicles on Fifth Street other than just the residents. I think you've heard tonight about some perceived speeding issues on Fifth Street. We engaged with that neighborhood, and at the time we said, well, we're doing this project at the circle. We're looking at the potential roundabout. We hadn't had this in the project, but that we would consider it and look at ways we can incorporate it into the project. Also, between 2022 and 2025, we met numerous times with residents of Lower Gregory Boulevard, the Marvin Beach Association. They had significant concerns about speeding within their neighborhood. And I mentioned earlier the no control approach on Gregory Boulevard southbound, and there's no deflection here. You can essentially just drive right into the neighborhood at a higher speed very comfortably, and it showed up in the data. We have studies going back many years and continued recently of speeds, 85th percentile speeds in the order of 40 miles per hour, 41 miles per hour. So at that time, we worked on putting up some speed feedback signs. If you go out there today, there's speed feedback signs at the lower end of the street. But that was a temporary band-aid. We recognize that infrastructure changes behavior, and this being the gateway to the neighborhood, addressing the circle, and then also looking at the first block of Gregory Boulevard would be beneficial to look at how we can get speeds more respective of a neighborhood through infrastructure improvements. Also, over the past several years, the park has become a major attraction. So we have a park at 3 Ludlow, and with the addition of pickleball courts, it's become even more of an attraction. We've received numerous requests for improved access to the park. I think someone mentioned earlier that there isn't truly adequate parking to support all the activities that happen there today. We've worked with the community to reconfigure some of the parking here on Gregory Boulevard, but the reality is the park needs better access. So there's a lot of parking opportunities in the neighborhood. The elementary school is also available at certain time periods. But there are not great connections on Calf Pasture Beach Road to get to that park. So for those reasons, we also looked at how we could add Gregory Boulevard and Calf Pasture Beach Road to the scope of this project. And just during the time frame of 2022 to 2025, this was a regular reoccurring issue with our bike walk commission. As you've heard from many pedestrian and bicycle advocates tonight, this is also the designated route of the Norwalk River Valley Trail. So unfortunately, this is all an on-road section for cyclists today, and not a fully complete pedestrian experience for access to the trail. So these were some of the things that we were, continuously hearing from different interested parties. During this downtime, we committed to addressing neighborhood safety concerns, and by expanding the scope of the project and looking for additional design and construction funding. We also just over this period just continued to collect additional traffic and crash data, some of that which I shared with you tonight. So fast forward to April 2025, the city had an opportunity to respond to Congressman Himes' fiscal year 2026 request for community project. So this is a highly competitive application process. And at that time, we thought this would be a good candidate for a project that would be funded, given its location and all of the different amenities that it either intersects with or in close proximity, including the beaches, the parks, the Norwalk River Valley Trail. So we worked on an application, expanded that application to not only address the traffic circle, but also to incorporate the additional scope of the project that's highlighted in the red border. And we've also included this on our website. I did bring a copy of the application tonight. I have a copy of the application. It's 61 pages long. I didn't make 15 copies, but in it, we included a sketch of what potential improvements could look like at this location. I'm more than happy to share it with the council, and then if you desire, and then also we can make it available on the website. It's just a very preliminary concept, and I'll ask Ben to just show the concept that we prepared for.
Excuse me for interrupting, but can you please specify, particularly for people who are listening in or watching online, where exactly they can find these documents on the website? So if you could just state that right now, that would be really helpful for people who might want to look in online.
Yeah, so if you go to the City of Norwalk webpage and you go to departments and you go to transportation, mobility, and parking, on the left, there'll be on our web page, our landing page, there'll be several tabs for all the projects that we have. Forgive the appearance. We're currently working on reorganizing the whole website, but it is the last bullet point on the project tabs, as it is the most recently added. So on our city department's webpage.
And then I would request that you send the sketch out. I know it's a sketch out that went along with the grant, but if you could pass it around, and then I don't see why we can't pass it through the audience.
Yeah.
And then you'll add the application to the website.
Yeah, we can add our application to the website and just make sure. Yeah, it's right here. So I can pass around. This is the concept. It's on 8.5 by 11. I think this was, just to clarify, this is a very competitive process. We included the scope and those limits in the project, and then we also put together just a sketch of what could potentially be. As you'll see in the contract amendment that's before you tonight, there's a lot of flexibility for the design of whether that's 5th Street. There's a number of different things we can look at. We are tasking the consultant to look at how parking is configured on the street. Whether it's on both sides, whether it sets up as a chicane, whether we do some curb extensions at the intersections to reinforce the parking restrictions. We've left a lot of flexibility for the design of the sidewalk, streetscape, and then also traffic calming features on the roadway. Anything from looking at raised crosswalks to raised intersections. There's just a number of different options, and this is just a really early sketch. What we look to do is really develop a concept. So when I say concept, this is a sketch, and this is this is something we shared at the mayor's night out, but I just want to show you, this is the difference. This is the level of detail that goes into developing a concept for the public meeting. And this is something that we're looking to similarly put together for June 22nd. So we also included in the amendment application, similarly along that vein, general access improvements for Gregory Boulevard but to Alden Avenue. We left that really open to the consultant and the community to come up with what those different concepts can be. And then we know we need a crosswalk on Cowpasture Beach Road that connects to the school, but that'll also be.
I just want to make it very, very clear to everyone who's here tonight, who's watching online, that what is being passed around is nothing but a sketch. It is not a design. It's just a sketch for the application. I think that's really important for us to remember.
And I'm sorry, and that this is an example of a prior
work on CG Avenue.
On a prior project, but it's just an example for the kind of design that, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so diving back into just the timeline. So we've made an application for the community project funding. That was in April 2025. And really what is driving us to be here today is in late January 2026, the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development THUD, right, and related agencies, the Appropriations Act was passed by Congress and signed into law. That included funding this grant application, the $850,000, which wasn't initially what was requested. We requested $3 million, but we were fortunate to get $850,000 to put towards this project. But that's really why we're here now. So we were informed in February that the bill had been signed into law. We had $850,000 in construction funding, and that really started to get this ball rolling. In March, we went before Finance and Claims Committee to appropriate $400,000 in state grant and aid funding that was secured to cover all of the preliminary engineering and design costs for this project. So at that time, now we have acquired funds to complete the design, state funding, and we have $850,000 in federal funding, which has an expiration date. In April, we worked judiciously with our consultant that had been involved with the project from the beginning for them to put together the amendment that's before you tonight to include what is 500 feet of roadway on 5th Street between Cove and Gregory Boulevard, to include 500 feet of Gregory Boulevard between 5th Street and Alden Street, and then to add 500 feet of roadway on Cowpasture Beach between Marvin and Marvin Elementary School. Consistent with the scope of the original contract, the amendment before you, includes everything. It includes, preliminary engineering, the collection of data. I want to go back to the survey, which is really important. We want to go to the public meeting and we want to advance the sketch to a design, but we want to be able to articulate where people's property lines are so we can assure them that we are creating a design that is occurring within the existing roadway, as I've heard a number of concerns tonight about right of way. So that's included in the amendment that's before you. It also includes the development of this concept, the attendance of additional public outreach meetings to work through the process with the community. And then it includes all the levels of engineering design to get to a final robust plan set and bid documents. But, that is later on in the process. What we really want to emphasize is the next step of this process is really the public engagement. So in May, where we are now, we consider the first really major milestone of this project to be that public outreach meeting on June 22nd. We consider ourselves just at the starting line for this project. I did speak with Congressman Himes' office today, and they confirmed that the clock is ticking on the federal funds that was applied to us. We're still waiting on being assigned a project coordinator for this project. But I can tell you personally that this is the third community project funding grant that I've worked on in the city of Norwalk. So the first one being West Rocks Road, the $1.4 million currently in construction. If we weren't in construction now, we would have had to relinquish that money and give it back to the federal government. Wall Street has a strict obligation deadline and design approvals for August. So we are rapidly working towards get phase 2 out the door and make sure we secure that funding. But on both of those projects that we've done in the past, and I see this project being as no different, it will likely be administered through the state, through the Connecticut Department of Transportation, and they'll work closely with our partners at the federal US DOT. I would imagine the strict deadline would be the same, and it would be approximately 4 years.
I'm sorry to interrupt again, Garrett, and this is a feature of my ears. Background noise makes it very hard for me to hear. When one person whispers is okay, but when many people whisper, it's a little difficult for me to hear. So I'm just asking for a little more silence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
So based on our experience with the past 2 projects, it's typically a 4-year deadline from the approvals, which the funding was approved in February. So with that being a concern, we, as part of this contract amendment, included preliminary engineering. So it's very important to advance the preliminary engineering, this survey, as I mentioned before, so we can really get to a concept that we can share with the community. It's really important for our department that when we share a concept and we advance it from what we've shared here tonight to a full concept, that it's feasible, it's constructible, that it can be done within a budget that is attainable. We still have to do any type of neighborhood improvements here. We still have to pursue additional funding to match with that $850,000. So while that funding will expire in the future, we need to also progress this design so we can have a competitive grant application, because many of these grant programs are very competitive, and we need to secure that funding, which will also come with its own restrictions, own deadlines. But we will need to marry those 2 together if we want to have a fully grant funded project, whether that is state or federal funding, which is to be determined. So I'd say that, and yes, we can push this back a couple weeks, we can push it back a month, but we remain concerned that we still have to advance plans. We still have to apply for competitive grants, and these processes take a long time, as we've seen with our 2 other projects, which have had a tremendous amount of community involvement and public engagement. It's just the nature of project development. So 4 years may seem like a long time, but it goes by really quickly. I also want to emphasize that the process we move forward with this project is just like any of our other projects. So we worked to secure funding. We were fortunate to get the state funding to fully cover the design costs moving forward with the project. We secured that funding. With all our projects, and it's typical, we engage a consultant, which is why the contract amendment is before you tonight. And it's really important for that consultant to be with us every step of the way. We include everything in the contract and the amendment, from concept design to multiple public engagement meetings with stakeholders, and to develop both the circle and then the auxiliary areas, which are adding to a full set of constructible plans. With all our projects, they're all data informed, but all our projects are community driven, and we fully recognize that the designs will change. But we feel strongly that it's important to bring to the community something that is cohesive, constructible, and best tries to balance as many of the issues that we've heard here tonight. We don't expect to get it right perfectly the first time, but I think with all the projects that we've done in the city, they've evolved over time, and none looked exactly like the original plans. So I know it was a little long-winded, but our team's available here to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Yeah. Thank you, Garrett. Question?
I'm sorry.
Mr. Buck, I'm sorry.
Make a point of order here, just for the record, so that the record shows in the record and for the people online, that this document is an example of the ones that we asked for as a community and was told did not exist and was not being provided to us. And we'd like you to instruct staff to post this on the website.
That's what we just asked.
Yes.
Yes, that's what we just asked. Yeah.
Yeah, and just clarification, we responded, Diane, to your email. We don't have this all figured out yet, and we're working on a comprehensive plan to bring to the community.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So I know we respond to your email, but what we stated is we are working on developing a full concept plan similar to the one shown tonight.
For the record, that's not what we asked for the sketch that's there. Just want to be clear. Thank you.
Questions?
I just wanted to quickly, the question on the cost of the item that's here tonight and sort of the breakdown.
Yes, so say that one more time.
The amount that's being asked is the 246,000 and
Yes.
the contingency, and what's the breakdown and how the allocation of those funds?
Yeah, so the breakdown, it varies. So we've included everything from concept design to public meetings in it, to survey, to the inclusion of some test pits to locate utilities. So as far as the survey that's needed for the next public meeting, that's about 7% of that overall cost of $242,000. It's about $17,000. So that's the work that needs to be advanced to make sure that we can identify the right of way. And then there's preparation time for the consultant based on the man hours and work hours they put into preparation for the meeting, but that's about $6,400 in meeting prep to fully flesh out the design of this concept. The breakdown of the costs, it's a 30% concept that they'll prepare. It's about 11% of the $246,000. And their estimated man hours for the 60% design is about 39% of that budget. And the final design, the creation of plans, specifications, estimates, detailed is about 35% of the 246. So in essence, to get to the public meeting, it's not $246,000. It's more or less $17,000 to collect survey and time to prep for the meeting and put together a really robust concept that addresses all the needs of the various stakeholders and competing interests in the area.
Okay, so with Mr. Buccalow first, Ms. Ayers, who's online next, and then Ms. Webster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you so much, Garrett. It was a really comprehensive presentation with a lot of details and really solid timeline of events and things. So just a couple of quick clarifying questions. Can you just state what the expiration date is of the federal grant?
Yeah, so we don't have it in writing yet. We are waiting for the project manager who's been assigned to the project to coordinate with the city. That process, in a conversation with Congressman Himes' office, I called today to confirm, is moving forward, but it works through the US DOT agency, and then it works through whatever agency is assigned at the state level. For the past two projects, it's been CONDOT, and for the past two projects, we've had approximately 4 years. I don't have the date to share with you tonight, but it's forthcoming and it's based on the approvals.
Okay, thanks. I have two more questions too. And I understand the process that the clock is ticking and how this compounds over time in a long-term project, but was just curious of that. Do you have a projected cost of the entire, I understand the 240s for the design and everything that follows, but do you have a projected cost of what the end goal is of the comprehensive project?
Yeah, so I think in totality, these are very, just with the caveat, these are very preliminary estimates and subject to change based on conversations with the community and what comes out of the public design process. When we applied for the application, we were looking for a $3 million to $3.5 million project. We asked for $3 million, thinking we could potentially match the remainder of the funding for that. Unfortunately, through the federal appropriations process, that got cut down to $850,000. But at a high level, with the sketch that we put together, that's the estimate that we came up to. But it's very high level and preliminary at this point.
Perfect. And then the last question I have, if you look up the backing materials of the expanded project services, there's a lot of different, I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions of what's actually happening versus what's in design and what's in conversation. And I'm just curious if you can talk about a little bit about how TMP has in a previous project taken public input and have changed the project as a result. Because I feel like there's a lot of pieces connected to this that you patch together with Fifth, with Marvin Beach, with Marvin Street, with the roundabout itself. And it doesn't mean that all those pieces are set in the plan and we're just creating a design around that. So I'm just wondering, If you can speak to that a little bit more and clarify that, and if you could share just a past story of how you all have taken public input, I would love to hear that too.
So there's many examples, I guess. So just a past project. So I just think along similar veins of funding, we've done the West Rocks Road project, and we had a public meeting at City Hall. And while we were looking at largely doing the sidewalks on one side of the street, a lot of the neighbors that resided on intersecting streets on the other side of the roadway, came to us looking at the addition of crosswalks further than we had originally scoped out. So through that engagement, we added raised crosswalks, we had numerous crosswalks, and we actually expanded the sidewalks to incorporate sidewalks on the other side of the street. And we advocated through CONDOT, because we combined two grants, the state and the federal grant, to increase the funding of the state grant to make those improvements possible. Similarly, I guess Wall Street is a really great example. It's gone through many iterations of design. The first meeting was really a charrette, and there wasn't a plan. We asked for a lot of feedback. I think here we have some constraints. So we certainly have a historic monument. We certainly have limitations with the right of way. So there's some limits to what we can do. So what we want to bring to the community is something that recognizes those constraints, but still has flexibility to plug in all the different parts, whether that's what Fifth Street looks like, whether that's what Lower Gregory or Upper Gregory Boulevard looks like. So I guess Wall Street would be another great example of how it's constantly evolved over time. I think sometimes there's a fear throughout the process that there's going to be limited touch points. But we have the consultant, that VHB, that's on board. We do regular biweekly meetings with in the city. They're working on some traffic signal projects as well. But will meet with residents, we'll meet with neighbors throughout the process individually to share the plans, to address transitions to their property, to talk about the business that's right north of the roundabout at Fifth Street, and how the parking interacts with their business, how we can maybe add some green space or maybe add some patio space or public space that can be used for multi-purposes. So, all of that kind of comes through as part of design. I think we're committed to continuing to work with property owners. But I guess we just have to start somewhere. And that's kind of where we are right now.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Ms. Ayers?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, a point of parliamentary procedure. I would ask for the order of the House, because those of us who are joining online, there must be some ruckus or some communication going on in the galley, but we're not able to hear it. So if there's something going on, it's a little disconcerting for us joining online. We cannot hear what is being said, nor are we able to, participate in that. So that's why I call for the order of the House. I do not know if it's prudent at this time to remind everybody of the rules of council. That's my first point. My second point is a question. The first I heard of it was this evening in public participation, and hopefully the transportation department can speak to it. We're in the plan or in conversation or anything that has come for the city that we are talking about taking people's property, because that was raised, I believe, I noted at least twice. And this is the first time I'm ever hearing of us taking private property for this project. Can you please speak of that?
Yeah, I'm happy to confirm there's no intention to take private property with this project. We've collected survey of the intersection. We're going to work within the existing right-of-way constraints. The amendment that's before you tonight is to collect additional survey to make sure that on any of the components we're adding to the project that we are working entirely within the right-of-way. We'll still have to work with property owners with transitions to their property, as is normal with any project, but there's no intention to build a massive roundabout structure that would take properties or anything of that nature.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ayers. Ms. Wennerstrand is next.
Thank you, Garrett. I just wanted to thank you for putting expeditiously all the things up on the website. I think that's really helpful. Is there a breakdown of the 246? You just sort of talked us through. Is there a breakdown that the public can see on the website of how that money is and what the timeline is for that money to be allocated through the design process?
Yeah, we can certainly update the website to
I think
include
that would
that.
be helpful for
The,
people to visualize it and see. It's a very large number to digest, and so if folks
What's
understand what's going towards design, what's going towards a public meeting, and how that is going to be spent over time. I think it would be
yeah, and I
helpful.
apologize if there was any confusion with the contract amendment. You know, it references the initial contract, which kind of, you know, divides the different levels of design. So it's really referencing back to an original contract and how the levels of design are broken out. But we can provide additional information, more than happy to.
I believe Mr. Bailey was next.
Great. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Gary, thanks for the presentation. And also, you know, obviously thanks to everyone who came out and spoke about this and has been engaged in previous meetings and via email. And, you know, I just want to sort of bring up a point that Councilman Ayers, I think, raised in the previous discussion is there any way when we look at this, you know, in terms of getting the end product back in this next stage to get a couple different options? You know, I think, you know, some of the maybe friction here is that the residents feel like things are getting forced on them. And so when we have the public in the next stage of the public comment on what comes back from the, you know, the first phase of design, if we can see more than one option that people can address, you know, talk to. And, you know, I have no idea if that's feasible or if that's like best practices, but just understanding degrees of different options, I think would help further the overall discourse and people can, you know, feel like they are part of the process. So thanks again. That's all I have.
Thank you. And I think we're committed to providing multiple options, and that includes the streets that we're adding. And we can also look at different options for Marvin at Pasture Beach Road and that terminus. So there's a lot on the table. There's a lot of different things we can do. And you know, we certainly want what's going to be best for the community.
Great. Thanks.
Mr. C.
Yeah, I came in to this to the chambers actually ready to support this, but I really don't get the warm and fuzzy with this. And I think it's because there's a disconnect with the community. And I think that this is a community that feels like it's something that's being done to them and that's not being done in collaboration with them. And I think if we zoom out a little bit and you look at East Norwalk, they have the Walk Bridge project, they have the tree that they just lost, they have new development that's happening in this neighborhood. And it's a lot of stuff so they don't feel that they can trust the city and feel that they have a voice of what's going on in the city. And that's troubling. And I've been on the other side because if we zoom out a little bit, I grew up in South Norwalk. And the same thing happened in South Norwalk where we had things happening. We felt that we didn't have a voice in what was going on. Just as recently as the South Norwalk School, I was on the same side with, hey, define the South Norwalk School. Let us know what's happening. Let us be a part of the process. And before they wanted to build the school at the Nathaniel Illey site, and we had no idea what was going on. And they promised community meetings, and what happened in the community meetings was they told us what they were going to do to us, and we really didn't have input, and that's frustrating. And I see it, but I also saw the good side. Hospital Hill, Wall Street. I walked Wall Street with yourself and Jim, and people driving by, business owners, they know you. They see you guys. They love what's going on. And that's what I feel warm and fuzzy when I vote to approve funding for projects like Wall Street or other things. But I just don't feel that warm and fuzzy with this. I understand the progress, and I understand that we have to make progress, but we can't use progress as an excuse to degrade the public trust. And I feel that we have a really big problem here. And again, it's not just this project. I think that you have to zoom out and see the totality of everything that's happening in that neighborhood. And for me, it's really troubling what's going on. And I just think that we really need to have more input from the community.
Mr. Deckenstein.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to acknowledge the residents of East Norwalk, and particularly those in the area of the roundabout. East Norwalk residents, as our council chair has said, has been hit upside the head with a brick over the past number of years with projects that they had no say in. And I'm not surprised that they're skeptical at this point about how things are done. I think we have an opportunity to change that. I think that you recognize that. We've had conversations about that. And I think we have to begin by acknowledging that they have to be the authors of this project as well as the design professionals. I have a leg up because I am a design professional, so I know what the process is. There have been people who have said, please stop. And we can't stop and have a conversation because the next action in a conversation is going to be based on a design development plan. We have just a mere concept plan which was used to get a grant and nothing more than that. I don't know how much, if at all, the final design, if there's going to be a design, will be represented in the plan that we already have. But the way to get there is to have a plan that is presented by VHB. They were selected because they were familiar with the project from way back when. It made most sense to use them again. And they are an excellent design, planning, and engineering company. What needs to be done now is for VHB to scamper and start doing design work similar to what you had shown just a little while ago, with enough detail that all the residents of this area will be able to communicate and understand what is going on and then communicate their concerns in more detail. So if there's going to be a next step, it has to be to sign the contract because VHB isn't going to do the work without having a contract. Now, I've also heard discussion that we're not going to go beyond that June 22nd meeting until we get to the June 22nd meeting so that we can get the input from the people. There are different types of surveys. They're not only property surveys. The surveys that we're talking about, in case other people don't understand it, involve finding out what the people want, finding out how traffic patterns and behaviors are more specifically assigned to different streets at different times of the days, different times of the actual year. You have a precious commodity in East Norwalk. It is not only Marvin Beach, it's also cat pasture, it's also the dog park. There are fantastic things going on there and it draws people from outside. I want to make sure that whatever is done is going to be done with safety in mind as well. I don't want it on my conscience that I ignored a project where somebody was mangled, somebody riding a bike was mangled by a driver who was confused. I don't want to find out that an old man was crossing the street on a late summer night and somebody had one too many drinks celebrating at Cops Island bar, hit them. So I think it's very important that we move forward. And my vote to recommend moving forward was based on the need to have more community input. So again, I thank everybody who has come out tonight. I thank everybody who has written letters on both sides of the equation. And I'd like to see how this begins to turn out. It's a process.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Mr. Hostin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Garrett, and the entire team, and everyone who has been part of the discussion tonight. I think what has been particularly helpful for me is some of the data that you shared in your presentation, and I found online through a simple Google search. I think, I start from the assumption, I think it was mentioned in public comment, that everybody here is in favor of safe roads for drivers, for pedestrians, for bicyclists. There's nobody who would say they're not, right? Like, So I think having the data helps us understand, why this discussion is important. What I think might help me further, and might be helpful to have a little bit more time to gather some of that data, is to put in some context, right? So when I hear that there's been 33 collisions in 10 years, one collision is one too many, right? However, 33 in 10 years, I don't know how to contextualize that. Is that insane? Is that crazy compared to the average? How does that compare to, other parts of Norwalk or other parts of the state or the country? Is that such an egregious number that this has to be done now? This had the second highest number of collisions in that time period for bicyclists. Where was the first? Do we know?
No.
Okay. Maybe we should put a roundabout there, because this is the second highest. And so I'm just saying, like the data is only helpful as much as we can contextualize it, including calls to customer service. And I understand, hearing from folks who live on Fifth Street or nearby who say, like, I need traffic calming, right? We got however many calls, right? Are those unique calls? If somebody calls 5 times, is that counted 5 times or once, right? I don't know that, and so it's hard for me to compare it. And I think we can get clarity on that. Maybe if we had a couple extra weeks to think about this, to really put that into context and really say, like, this is compelling data, right? On its face, it seems very compelling. I want to make sure that those of us who are concerned about safety, which is everybody here, can have that context as we move forward. And then I just wanted to add to Councilman Bailey's comment that having that data then helps us understand how the data potentially changes based on proposed traffic changes, right? So having this kind of roundabout that is sketched out here that may and will change over time. I wrote down the word you said, will mitigate some of these dangers, right? But what does that mean, right? So we will invest the money it takes, especially if we get federal and state grants, to make our city safer. But I want to know, what does mitigate mean, right? When we think about this kind of traffic change, which is potentially large and disruptive, is it going to be worth it from a safety perspective? And in that similar vein, as Councilman Bailey said, how does it compare to other potential options like a raised crosswalk? Or I understand we had signs that didn't work in the past, but did we exhaust every option and think about how those can help address the problems that we're saying are creating this opportunity in the first place? So I think those questions are some that I have that are still lingering. I really appreciate the attention to detail when it comes to thinking about safety of our residents. We all hate traffic. We all deal with parking issues wherever we live in the city. And this is part of the city that we all use, right? I hesitate when it comes to say, like, some people should have a greater say than others because they live on a certain street. Everybody lives here, everybody has a stake in it, and everybody wants everybody to be safe. And so once we can have a baseline we can agree on, I think it might make this decision a little easier to make.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Mr. Freyer?
Thank you. Garrett, thank you very much. It's a lot of what you said tonight is good information, and a lot of the information that I was really looking for to help me make a decision. And 2 other points that I wanted to make was, first of all, is if we delayed this a month, what's that going to cost us?
So the largest concern with delaying it a month, I can't tell you the risk of the federal grant. We're waiting on that exact deadline. I can just tell you the clock is ticking. we potentially the public meeting, we can't answer some of the questions regarding right of way because we won't be able to go out and collect that additional right of way information. Also the level of detail that we're able to provide with the concept design. I think we wanted to come with something for those additional roadways that's really robust. We can take another look at how we can try to get that done within the existing contract, but there's just a lot of certainty. We still, we have to match the federal funding with additional gap funding, and every day that we wait, those opportunities might slip by, and we really want to work with the community to develop a concept, a more advanced concept, because it will just make those applications more competitive. So I can't answer the questions about whether the risk associated with it. I can just tell you that every day it gets harder to deliver these projects.
So it's a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing here, that, if we don't approve this money, we may not jeopardize the project, but on the other hand, we can't go and do additional work that some of us would like to see until we get this money and engage VHB.
And if as in regards to the contract amendment and the questions regarding the allocations of funds to specific tasks, if the project doesn't move forward from concept to preliminary design or to semi-final design, those funds aren't expended. The project doesn't move forward until we have something that's agreeable based on the community. So that there's a small amount upfront that needs to be expended to deliver the best product and to really come up with a cohesive plan to have a really informed, data-driven conversation that ultimately is driven by the community after that.
Do we have to approve the whole 246,000 in order to get to the point where you can start to incorporate all of the residents' input and concerns? You'll never get all of them, okay? But to the extent where we could either move forward or say, no, this is just not going to work.
Yeah, I guess that's certainly an option for the council. I'm not sure the process to modify it on the floor, but that initial funding is important to develop a really robust and comprehensive plan. So if I'm not sure if you can approve task one as part of that amendment.
In other words, we could break this down into individual projects that as we go along, we approve them, and each one of those projects gets us closer, gets the bikers and the residents closer together, let's say.
Yeah, it's just very difficult from a design standpoint to bring on a consultant, to work on a really large project, but not have them available for the entirety of the project.
So that's not something that you think that we could do.
So
in other words, we have to.
It's challenging. We could come back with amendment after amendment. I think what we heard from the council and what we normally do as part of the project delivery process is, really look at what does it take to get to the finish line, what are the steps to get there, and then look to bring out a consultant on board so they can be part of the process at all stages.
But I guess I'm just trying to get you to say yes. If we don't go all in with VHB, we're not going to get to the finish line. But and on the other hand, I don't hear you saying that. Yeah, we can put it into break it down into chewable bites, where we can get a lot closer, so we can get gather some momentum, some more people that are not get more people, but get more of a buy-in to exactly what we think, or get them to tell us what we really would get to the best solution.
Yeah, I think that would result in a series of contract amendments. The way the contract that's before you is, it's really looking at the length of the roadway and coming up with costs for designs for.
One final question.
Each of those sites.
In the great scheme of things, I know everybody is very concerned when we hear $250,000, and I certainly am too. But maybe I'm starting to get immune to some of these numbers that I hear all the time when the Department of War asks for $3 trillion to continue some crazy war. You know, is this a big number? I mean, I look at the scope of this project, and we're here $250,000 to get to where we can start building this thing. Doesn't seem like a lot of money. I mean, this is a huge project.
It's
In the great scheme of things, is this, am I wrong on that, or?
It's a really large area, and we're before you tonight to expand that area several thousand, 500 feet in multiple directions of the project. I can tell you that based on industry standard, based on an estimate for a project, it's somewhere between 10 to 15%. You can anticipate in engineering design service fees relative to the total cost of the proposed project. So, this falls in line with that. We are, as part of this project, there's a lot of different disciplines involved. So because of its low-lying proximity to the water, that we see, and we're proposing to move curb lines and establish permanent infrastructure. The drainage has to be evaluated, water flow has to be evaluated. We've heard from the community the importance of illuminating this intersection. So I think we included in part of the proposal, but it's really important to look at improved lighting. So some of those opportunities might exist. Some of it might be a new system, might need a new cabinet, might need new conduit through the area. Depending on the desires from the community, that could mean pedestrian level lighting as part of the project. We included that as a possibility within the scope. So there's so many disciplines involved with these projects. We're committed to the area to developing a landscaping plan. What that includes will be determined through community meetings, but that could mean everything from center island landscaping, if that's desired, to the splitter islands, enter roundabout, trees within the project area, additional planning. So there's just so many disciplines that go into this coordination with the utilities. I guess, if $3.5 million project, 10% of that is $350,000. So all the way up to 15% is the industry standard. So I would say that this is in line with industry standards.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mr. Jeckenstein.
Just a little bit more detail on what it takes to have a design contract. This is not just for the design. It's not just pretty pictures that one can follow. It also includes after the schematic design and the consent of the client, who was the city of Norwalk. Then there's a design development phase in which modifications are made based on comments and further understanding of the work that comes out of surveys. After the design development is approved, there is then construction documents which describe in detail every foot of what is being built and constructed underground and above ground. And after that, the design professional also is going to be involved in the construction phase of the project. They will be coming out to visit the site to see that, in effect, the work is being done according to the design intent. So it's not just a design. And as you said, $240,000 on a project that is over $3 million in construction is around 8%, 7%, somewhere in there, which is a very reasonable construction design professional's cost. So I think we're on the right road for this. I just want to make sure that what we end up with is consolidating the comments and the letters that we have from both sides. And I think that the only way we're going to be able to do that is to have a conversation. And that conversation can't occur without signing a contract. We have to, I would have to check, but it is conventional that an engineer or a planner or a designer just cannot run through the project. They have to get the consent to go to the next stage every time.
Yeah.
And we will wait to see what we have before we can give that consent.
Mr. Hoskin?
Just as a temperature check, I'm getting the sense from my colleagues, certainly from our constituents, that it might be helpful to get a little bit more clarity on certainly some of my questions about the data before I can vote on this. And I wonder without making an actual motion.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, if you're going to make a motion, may I make a few comments first?
That's what I was gonna ask. So I will.
Thank you. Yeah, so thank you very much for your presentation and for providing clarity to the constituents. I want to thank everyone who came out. And what I really want to reassure everyone is that we care and we want to hear from you. You know, it's why I chose specifically to come to East Norwalk for my first Meet the Mayor, for the first Mayor's Night Out, because as Mr. Seed has so eloquently pointed out, East Norwalk has been through a lot. Really, really has been through a lot. Between the Walk Bridge project, the DOT projects, you know, the tree, everything, and to have the road closures, the disruptions that you have. I'm working very much to rebuild your trust. So I want to make that clear. There's a couple of things that really rose to my awareness tonight. One is, I think that we really need to help look at language that we use, because it seems that there's been a lot of confusion around what is a sketch, what is a design concept, what is a design. And this isn't the first time I've heard it. In other parts of the city, people think, oh, there's a design, but there's not a design. So we have to do a better job of being careful about that language and making sure it's really clear for our constituents. Because what we don't have a design, right? We have a concept that, you know, you sketched out for a grant application. And so that's not a design. So we want to be really clear about that. And I think that's something we can talk about, you know, with the staff and try to maybe find a way, like we have some keyword phrases on the website or something. So let's address that so that we're really, really clear with the public where we're at in the process. And so it doesn't create confusion and misconceptions. Something that really came to me when it was Chelsea Walsh who spoke and talked about how, you know, let's compromise, right? We have, you know, a lot of people who are feeling like, you know, it's hard to see the change here in Norwalk, right? Others who, you know, are really embracing the change. And what's important is we listen to each other, right? And we respect one another's views. And that's something that as a community, I think that we can get there. And I think we can move forward doing that. So I want to, you know, just ask everybody to, like, you know, think of the other perspectives you heard tonight and take that in and just respect it. You may not agree, right? But please respect it. I think that, you know, if we're going to look at, you know, a delay, the things that we want to see. And I think that, you know, contextualizing the data, as you had brought up, is a really, really good thing. So, so let's think about, you know, what we can do coming back with a delay, whatever motion you're gonna make, because then I can tell that's what's happening. Is let's get really specific about the data. And I will say, you know, I've been here in Norwalk for many years, and you mentioned, almost 30 years. You mentioned the 2001, all the way back to 2001. And I remember reading about the concerns about the roundabout and the dangers about the roundabout. We have heard from many, many constituents the concerns around safety at that roundabout. We know, and it was what, 10, 12 years ago, there were changes that were made to address it, but they were worse. And so they went back. And so what we have with our transportation and mobility and parking department are experts, right? You do the studies, you have the data. I also know that you have a lot of data, and I think this is something we need to get this information out and share, is how in the areas where you have made these, you know, these changes on our streets, our sidewalks, that we have lower crash rates, we have lower pedestrian hits, you know, with vehicles. So you have that safety data, bring that along next time, because that's really important for our residents to understand it. With that disruption comes, safer streets, safer sidewalks. It's safer for everyone. And it's very clear what we all want is public safety. We want to make sure that, that everyone is safe. We want to make sure that those families who are walking from the Marvin Beach area to Ludlow Park, to Pasture Beach are safe. We want to make sure that, the elderly gentleman who's walking is not hit by the drunk driver who's coming in from the beach. All these things we heard tonight. This is about public safety. It's not about, putting something on a community. And I also think, I don't want to forget to mention too, that, my God, you've had so much disruption, right? And it's not ending anytime soon. But if this project were to, move forward, approximately when might you see shovels in the ground? It's got to be at least a year away, right?
Yeah, I'd say given where we are with the timeline and the uncertainty with funding, it's probably 2 to 3 years away. And part of the project would be to look at what is the appropriate construction, phasing, staging to make this least impactful with the neighborhood, and of course that will consider everything else that's happening in the entire neighborhood's entirety.
Yeah, and finally, one more thing, about TMP, which also you mentioned, like the success at Hospital Hill, because of the community engagement you do, they're gonna come door to door to all the houses in the neighborhood. They're gonna talk to everybody. You'll have these, sessions, right? And people have the opportunity to speak. The community around Hospital Hill, the folks around Wall Street, even though it's complete disruption in Wall Street, they're loving it because they've been waiting so long. And the community engagement you do is really, really excellent. So that's something I want to reassure the community about, that you will get that. You will get that with this department. So that being said, I will now turn it back to you, Mr. Hostin.
I'm going to yield to my colleague, Ms. Edie.
Okay.
I'm going to try to get through this as quick as possible. But first, I just want to thank all the residents who came out. Some were in favor, some are not. But I do thank you for taking the time to be here with us and online. Also wanted to thank TMP, their team, Garrett, Ben, and Jim Travers. I've said this publicly before. When I reach out to this department, they respond back to me, and I appreciate that. And I just want to be clear that I'm not opposed to this project. But I am committed to anything that makes our streets and communities safer. So some of the stuff I'm gonna read, we done already answered the questions. He already answered some of the questions, but I'm gonna read it anyway because I wrote it. So we gonna keep on moving. So anyway, let me be clear. I am in favor of the Greenview Boulevard roundabout and the 5th Street shared use path. I am committed to anything that makes our streets and communities safer. However, I am asking to table the signing of the contract amendment between the City of Norwalk and VHB for a period of 2 weeks. While many residents support this project, others simply want to understand what is happening in their neighborhood. We need to allow the public the chance to digest the details and offer feedback before the contract is finalized. I fully recognize the situation in East Norwalk. There are so many other projects happening at once that residents feel project fatigue. We don't want this to be one more thing for people to be angry about, especially when safety is something we all want. There is a concern that we cannot present anything to the public before a contract is signed. However, the VHB memo itself references a concept plan developed in 2022 for the Transportation Master Plan. We can and should build off those initial designs through discussion with our residents. This is also an opportunity for the city to create the narrative and explain the history of the project, which you did tonight. We should be highlighting that we secured state funding thanks to Senator Duff, federal dollars thanks to Congressman Himes. You also mentioned that. Moving forward, I am committing myself to better due diligence and getting this type of information out to the public sooner. So by meeting the community halfway in good faith, we can explain why we want to work with the original vendor who provide, which you already did. And since we do not know the immediate deadline for these funds, nor the sensitivity of the vendor's timelines, I'm hoping a brief 2-week window to hold a forum will not jeopardize the project, but that it will strengthen public trust. Thank you for your time.
Nicole, now I gotta make a motion.
Oh, I'm gonna make a motion to table the amendment of the contract.
Why don't you say you're making a motion to table items B, 1A and B on the agenda for a period of 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay, I want to make a motion to table B1A
And B
and B
for a period of 2
for a
weeks.
period of 2 weeks.
Okay.
No
the motion is
discussion on a motion to table.
Right.
Right, the motion is on the floor. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? And the motion to table 2 weeks passes unanimously. So we'll come back in 2 weeks and you will have more data for us, more contextualized data. And in the meantime, the opportunity for, some email feedback, email requests. You know how to find it. Okay.
Thank you.
One more motion.
One more motion.
I got it, good. Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Okay. Thank you.